10.65 seconds. That's how long it took Sha'Carri Richardson to become the 5th fastest woman in the history of the 100 meters. Only 4 women ever have run it faster. One of them died over a decade ago. 2 of them ran in an era before modern drug testing existed. And the fastest woman alive today, the one still adding to her name right now in 2026, wasn't even guaranteed a spot on that Olympic team 2 years earlier. 2 years before she ran that time, she wasn't allowed to compete at the Olympics at all. Track and field doesn't usually get second acts like this. When a sprinter gets removed from the biggest stage in the sport in front of the entire country, the story is supposed to end there. We will get to exactly why it didn't. But first, you need to understand just how impossible this comeback actually is. Because 10.65 doesn't just mean fast. It means faster than every American woman has ever run except one, in an event where the world record has stood untouched since 1988. It means the ghost of Florence Griffith Joyner is still the only thing standing between Richardson and history. And she ran it 2 years after her own country's anti-doping system took her out of the Olympics entirely. Dallas, Texas. Not a training hub, not a pipeline city like Houston, not a college town built around a legacy sprint program. Just Dallas, where Sha'Carri Richardson grew up, raised by her grandmother and her aunt, the people who supported her earliest interest in the sport before anyone outside Texas knew her name. She ran at David W. Carter High School, and by the time she was done there, she had 2 Texas state titles to her name and a reputation that had already spread past the state line. When she graduated in 2018, she wasn't a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. She was the #1 sprint recruit in the entire country, and every major program in America wanted her. She picked LSU, and in her one and only college season in 2019, she ran 10.75 seconds to break the NCAA 100-meter record as a 19-year-old freshman, a time that instantly made her one of the 10 fastest women alive at any age on the planet. She walked away with the Bowerman Award. June 19, 2021, the U.S. Olympic trials in Eugene, Oregon. Richardson runs 10.86 and wins the 100 meters outright, punching her ticket to the Tokyo Games. The moment is everywhere. Highlight reels, national broadcasts, magazine profiles already being drafted. American track and field finally had the star it had been waiting for. Young, fast, unapologetically herself. 9 days later, that story collapsed. Richardson tested positive for marijuana at those same trials. Under the rules in place at the time, that result was enough to erase her win at trials and trigger a 1-month suspension, long enough to keep her out of the Olympic 100 meters entirely. The sport she just conquered turned around and shut the door in the same breath. What came out afterward made it harder to process, not easier. Richardson later said publicly that she had learned her biological mother had died just days. Her own college coach at LSU, Dennis Shaver, issued a statement within a day of the news breaking. "We fully back Sha'Carri." That was the easy part. Support from the people who knew her didn't change the ruling from the people who governed the sport. Tokyo happened without her. The games that were supposed to introduce her to the world went on, and she watched them from outside the team. That's the part almost nobody brings up when her name comes up today. Everyone remembers the redemption. Almost nobody sits with how public and how total the fall actually was first. Here's what makes this different from a normal comeback story. Richardson didn't get to rebuild quietly, away from cameras, the way most athletes recovering from a setback can. She had to do it in front of millions of people who had just watched her get erased from the Olympics on national television. Determined, her first race back was the 2021 Prefontaine Classic, one of the sport's marquee events, just weeks after the suspension news. The next year wasn't much kinder. Through 2022, she got knocked out in the heats of the 100 meters and the semifinals of the 200 meters at the U.S. Championships, and didn't qualify for that year's World Championships team at all. Think about that for a second. The most hyped sprinter in the country, coming off a public suspension that had made international news, couldn't even make the team the very next year. No shortcuts, no exemptions. Just the slow, humiliating grind of trying to physically prove she was still who everyone said she was. That detail right there is the whole story. Not the redemption everyone talks about now. The grinding, unglamorous middle part before the redemption, where she kept lining up, kept losing to people. She ran 10.57 seconds at the Miramar Invitational, the fourth fastest 100 meters ever run by a woman under any wind conditions, even with an illegal tailwind that meant it wouldn't count for record purposes. A month later, she won her first Diamond League title in Doha. The signs were there before the world was paying attention again. That's the raw number. In August 2023, at the World Championships in Budapest, Sha'Carri Richardson won the 100-meter final in 10.65 seconds, her first global individual title and a lifetime personal best. Now here's what that number means against her own history. 2 years earlier, at that same Prefontaine Classic, she'd run 11.14 seconds for 9th place in a comeback race almost nobody outside her inner circle believed she'd win anything at again. 10.65. From dead last in a field of former Olympic medalists to a personal best that ranks among the fastest times ever recorded by a woman in the same event in barely 2 years. Now, here's what it means against the best to ever do it. The women's 100-meter world record is 10.49 seconds, set by Florence Griffith Joyner in 1988, a mark that has survived every era of sprinting since. Through decades of advances in shoe technology, training science, and track surfaces, without a single woman getting closer than a few hundredths of a second. Richardson's 10.65 sits as the 5th fastest time in the sport's recorded history, not 5th among active runners, 5th of all time, ever, in a sport with well over a century of recorded results behind it. Let that land. Not 3rd in her conference, not 3rd in the country, 5th on an all-time list that includes only one other active competitor running that quickly, in a ranking of a sport old enough that the record above her has outlasted the athletes she now races against by decades. Here's the fact, stated plainly, with no hype attached. Sha'Carri Richardson ran the 5th fastest women's 100 meters ever recorded, roughly 2 years after the United States Anti-Doping Agency suspended her out of an Olympic Games for a substance that had absolutely nothing to do with performance enhancement. That is not a small fact. That is a historic fact that puts this performance in a completely different category, because it means the fastest recovery from a public, career-threatening setback in modern American track and field wasn't measured in redemption speeches or calm, e-back press tours. It was measured in fractions of a second, against a world record that has now outlasted 4 separate generations of sprinters who tried and failed to touch it. And the story didn't stop at Budapest. She went on to add a silver medal in the 100 meters at the Paris 2024 Olympics, the very games format she'd been shut out of just 3 years earlier, finishing behind St. Lucia's Julian Alfred, whose win was her country's first ever Olympic medal of any color. Then, anchoring the 4x100 meter relay in pouring rain at Stade de France, Richardson ran the U.S. team down from 4th place at the handoff to win gold outright. The athlete who missed one Olympics entirely for a 1-month suspension walked out of the next one with 2 medals around her neck, one of them gold. Here's the part that doesn't make the highlight reels. In late January 2026, ahead of a season she'd publicly called her shot at something legendary, Richardson was arrested in Orange County, Florida, and cited for driving 104 miles per hour in a 65 zone. It was messy. It was public. It was, in its own small, way, size, exactly the kind of headline that used to define her before she'd earned the right to define herself with a stopwatch instead. She didn't disappear from it, and she didn't script a defense around it. Weeks later, in a video posted to her own account, she said something that had nothing to do with times or medals or the incident at all. "I'm just refusing to be my own enemy anymore." Thoughtful. Not a press conference. Not a list of people she'd proven wrong. Just a woman, on camera, talking plainly about getting out of her own way. Not a speech, not vindication, just that. And then, back to work, opening her 2026 season an ocean away at Australia's Stawell Gift, one of the sport's oldest handicap races, before returning to the Diamond League circuit in China and eventually back home to the United States. The Los Angeles 2028 Olympics are 2 years away. Sha'Carri Richardson will be 28 years old, arriving at what would be her first true home Olympics in a year she's already told the world, in her own words, she expects to be legendary, not just on the track, but as the woman she says she's designed to be. She'll get there having already done the hardest part, turning the worst week of her athletic life, a week that cost her an Olympics and a shot at history before it had even started, into a launching pad for the 5th fastest 100 meters ever run by a woman on this earth. As of this week, she's still racing at the highest level, still trading places with the world's best at meets like the Prefontaine Classic, still chasing more. The only number left in front of her now is 10.49, a world record that has survived every sprinter born since it was set in 1988, including this one. Does Sha'Carri Richardson break Florence Griffith Joyner's 37-year-old world record before her career is over? Drop your answer below. And if you want to see how the rest of the American women's sprint corps, the training partners and rivals racing alongside her right now, chasing the same road to LA 2028, actually stack up against her, that's exactly what we're breaking down next.